Okay, so we begin with On Leather Wings. This episode was the first episode produced of Batman the Animated Series, and it is interesting to go back to the very beginning of this incredible series. This episode serves as an introduction to Batman's world and how he operates. Batman shows off his detective skills throughout this episode as he investigates pharmaceutical robberies committed by Man-Bat. Due to witness description of a bat, Batman, of course, is blamed for the robberies and has to confront the police as Detective Bullock leads the hunt. Bullock is the secondary antagonist of this episode, but later episodes, such as Vendetta and A Bullet for Bullock, show the character's humanity. This is the only time in this series, not counting Mask of the Phantasm, where Batman is on the run from the police, though he is still distrusted by other characters, not just Bullock, in later episodes such as Be a Clown and Trial. On Leather Wings is probably less dense than the average episode of Batman the Animated Series, since not too much happens. This episode can be summed up as Batman fights the police, investigates chemical robberies, which lead him to fight and cure Man-Bat. This is not a fault with the episode because it takes its time showing the audience Batman's world, Batman being a detective, and some well-animated action sequences. Among the many unique aspects of this episode compared to the rest of the series are the visuals. The design aesthetic is not different from the rest of the series, but it seems more of an effort was put into making the episode look like it was made in a time before the show was released. As such, the feeling of the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons that Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski were working for feels more prominent. On Leather Wings has even better lighting on the characters than the show usually has, which is really apparent in the scenes such as when the Mayor, Gordon, Harvey Dent, and Bullock are talking about arresting Batman, and when Batman talks to Dr. Langstrom. The latter scene is especially stylized because there's a black shadow in the corner of the screen, which you can see in other scenes, such as when Bullock is in his car. I don't remember noticing this in other episodes, so this is a unique episode in the visual department. Another thing not usually found in the series is a really cool introduction of the Batmobile as it rides out of the cave and onto the streets of Gotham. Speaking of Gotham, we get to see a beautiful Art Deco design to the background, painted on black paper to make the show look as dark as possible. The Art Deco design also goes to the vehicles, which also look beautiful, especially the police cars. In Batman the Animated Series, it is surprisingly easy for me to notice when an episode is well animated and when it is not. Batman moves very well and is drawn very consistently, especially in the final battle against Man-Bat. By the way, thumbs up for having Batman bleed. That's always awesome. It seems that the look of this episode is the focus of this review, not the actual story, but as said before, the story isn't all that interesting. It's nowhere near bad, but the episode itself is more focused on letting the visuals tell a story, which is a great direction. But this series brought a very definitive characterization to Batman. He's brooding, incredibly smart, and does not talk without purpose. While many people consider him to be cold and detached, he shows true compassion, which is exemplified in Heart of Ice. But he still shows it in this episode by curing Langstrom and not turning him into the police. Practically anyone who watches Batman the Animated Series knows that it has the definitive voice for Batman, Kevin Conroy. From the beginning of the series, he delivers a great performance. To this day, Kevin Conroy does a great job with the voice, though it is subtly different now. In this episode, Kevin Conroy's Batman voice sounds quieter than how he sounds in Arkham City, but both sound great to me. Conroy's voice acting sounds especially good when he talks to Langstrom before he transforms. The voice acting for all the characters in this episode sound great, especially Bob Hastings as Commissioner Gordon. It also helps that all the actors get good and believable dialogue, and not just this episode, but throughout most of the series. The only voice that doesn't sound that great to me is Alfred, who is voiced by Clive Revill in the first 3 episodes. I am so glad they got Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. for the rest of the series, and he is my favorite version of Alfred of all time. One of the greatest assets this series has, of course, is the score by Shirley Walker. The early episodes especially have great music, and the opening Man-Bat theme is appropriately eerie. The opening music sets a great moody tone, which is again the best aspect of this episode. My only real problem here is Kirk Langstrom himself. Man-Bat looks cool and Langstrom has a good voice actor, but the audience is given nothing about how he feels once he's cured. You don't know for sure whether it was entirely Man-Bat controlling him or he subconsciously influenced the creature. There's a sequel to this episode, Terror in the Sky, which shows Kirk Langstrom dealing with having become Man-Bat. But if this is the only episode you saw with Man-Bat, you might feel that the ending is a bit empty. Focusing more on the Man-Bat creature, I was actually surprised to find that the transformation creeped me out a bit. The laughter while the transformation is occurring makes it look like something out of a nightmare, or at least as nightmarish as you can get on a Saturday morning cartoon. Moving on to the other guest stars, I found Dr. March interesting, since he believes bats are better than people in a similar way to how Poison Ivy prefers plants to people. This causes a really good scene where Batman is in the cave after he's talked to Dr. March, and he says he's lying, and I'm gonna find out why. That's some great voice acting there. He is much more, Dr. March, he's much more developed in the sequel episode, though I feel like I got enough from him in this episode, unlike Langstrom. This is an episode that absolutely demands to watch the sequel, especially regarding Dr. Langstrom's wife, Francine Langstrom, which we'll get to later on. All in all, this is a quality episode of this series. It has great visuals, good voice acting, and Batman is shown doing what he does best. This is not one of the best in the show, but a good start to the box set. I give On Leather Wings a 4.5 out of 5. That might be a bit higher than I was making it out to be, but this is very enjoyable, just not as dense as later episodes. Thanks for watching, and next up is Christmas with the Joker. Stay tuned.